Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and get together and talk about them. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Jeff Kolaski, and I am the host of Talkumentary. Today, I'm here with my very good friends. Let's start with old King James over there. How you doing, Mr. James?
I am doing all right. It's a beautiful day. I say beautiful night.
Yep. Katy, welcome back.
It's good to be here, Jeff.
And introducing for the first time our friend Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
This week, we watched a 101-minute documentary called Pray Away.
I was active in the gay community for 13 years.
I was in it for 6 years, then struggled for 5 years before finding true freedom.
It was 13 years for me.
4 for me. We both walked away from it.
I personally came out of the homosexual lifestyle.
And we're just saying that if you want to change, there is a way to do it.
I spent a lot of time thinking, how did I believe that?
This was a film put out in 2021 that follows the former leaders of the, quote, Pray the Gay Away movement as they contend with the aftermath they unleashed with their actions. While a survivor seeks healing and acceptance for more than a decade of trauma, Pray Away was nominated for Best First Documentary Feature for Christine Stolakis.
Which will be in the show notes.
At the Critics' Choice Documentary Awards in 2021, the Dorian Awards for LGBTQ Documentary of the Year at Galeka, I'm not sure what that stands for, I'm sorry, in 2022. It was nominated for the Outstanding Documentary at the GLAAD Media Awards in 2022 and the Best Documentary Feature at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2020. Pray Away is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% tomato meter and an audience score of 79%. Directed by Christine Stolakis, produced by Christine Stolakis, Anya Roos, and Jessica Devaney. So this film used a ton of production companies. So here we go. Ready? Blumhouse Productions, Multitude Films, Cinereach, Artemis Rising, Ryan Murphy Productions, Chicken and Egg Pictures, Tribeca Film Institute, Secret Sauce Media, Naked Edge Films, Lamplighter Films, and Catapult Films Fund.
Ryan Murphy and Blumhouse. Anybody remember those?
No.
Ryan Murphy does American Horror Story. He did Glee. Ooh. He does a lot of stuff. And also Blumhouse does all your favorite horror movies.
An icon.
One of the most famous horror movie makers in the modern century. So his name is Jason Blum, and he's amazing.
Nice.
Love him.
Yep.
Thanks. This was distributed by Netflix, which is where we watched it. If I screwed up any of the names or anything like that, I'm so sorry. You can send me hate mail.
But they won't, because they love you.
I hope that's true. All of that will be in the show notes along with the link to the doc and all that good stuff. Before we get into it, this is your one and only spoiler alert. So please go and watch this documentary before watching. Well, you're not watching us. Before listening to us, it's an audio medium.
If you don't know that, you're in the wrong place.
Let's talk about why we chose to watch Pray Away. Our dealer for today's show was the one and only Catherine. Why don't you tell us why this documentary interested you and why you wanted to watch it for this show? Take it away.
There's definitely a personal anecdote with this selection. I am a bastard from a Catholic school, so I should actually toss this out there. Half gay bastard from a Catholic school.
Would you define bastard?
That is a child born out of wedlock
per
the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of it's just interesting to see what forms of, I would call it propaganda, come out of the church and clergy alike. So
did you say half gay?
Half gay, bisexual.
I love that term. I've never heard half gay.
I just think I made it up. No, I didn't. I think everyone's a little half gay.
I enjoy that.
Not me.
As in on
Liar.
the spectrum of sexuality?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think
it.
there's actually, I mean, I know there's a lot of gentlemen who are older in the room who will disagree with me, but...
as in there's a binary as opposed to a spectrum.
I don't think heterosexual is a real thing. I really don't.
You're entitled to your opinion. We are here today to talk about a documentary.
Yep.
Had you seen this before we watched it for our show?
No, I hadn't. I've watched it 4 times though.
4 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was 400 minutes of documentary for you.
Yeah. I was just trying to pray away the gay with them.
Open to the room. Did we have predictions? Did we have presumptions? James, what were your thoughts when we said, hey, we're watching Pray Away for this week?
Well, when I first heard it, I just thought, pray, I like it already. Pray away.
Because you're a religious man, correct?
I attempt to be religious.
Yeah.
But what I do, you can't blame God because God and men are not the same.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Katie, had you seen this one?
Yes. I've always been interested in the church and the way it affects our humanity as far as sexuality. My favorite doc before this, which I feel like is a good predecessor, is called Jesus Camp. I believe it's also on Netflix. If you want to see something terrifying, watch Jesus Camp. They pray to a cardboard cutout of George Bush, and then children speak in tongues.
Yeah.
It's excellent. As far as this one goes, I was under the impression that Pray Away was an organization created by straight people to force their gay family members to convert back to heterosexuality. That is not the case in this documentary, so that was very surprising.
Some surprise. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's always good to be a little surprised.
To go into this and learn.
Yep,
That's
there
what
was
we
a
want.
few things about this that I was a little, and we'll get into it, but I was kind of impressed with in the way that they made this and
It was
presented
an
certain things.
excellently produced
very
documentary.
much so.
Surprisingly
I liked the flow of the
unbiased.
story too. Like you didn't know every.
There really wasn't bias as far as I could tell. They were very well unbiased, especially with the first person that they opened with was startling
Yep.
Yeah.
and still unbiased.
Yeah.
All the questions were unbiased. They were all just open-ended. Everybody gave their perspective. And they really you didn't see or hear from the directors, just like a documentary should be.
Right.
There was no overtone from someone speaking and directing the story. It was just very well done.
Yep. And one of the things, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but I appreciated too when I talk about what my what's the word?
Preconceived notions.
Preconceptions or whatever about the doc. I thought for sure here's a religious bashing documentary. I thought for sure this was going to talk about how bad and evil religion is. And I was raised in the church, and religion has played a big part of my life, although I don't necessarily adhere to much of any of that anymore. It was a big part of my upbringing, and I don't think, and some of the best people that I know are very religious and what's like, yeah, they're very spiritual. And so I'm glad that this was not that, just because
it just didn't need to be in order to explain what was happening.
Exactly. So I'm going to give a fairly broad synopsis of what we watched. At any point, please feel free, crew, to chime in, give me your opinions, what you thought. Please interrupt me if I'm going too long and you think, hey, Jeff, we need to hear someone else's voice.
Heard that.
Yeah. I used Sam Thielman's review on NBC's Think column as well as some of my own opinions and things as I wrote the synopsis. So that was my source. This documentary is about conversion therapy and the people who did, and some of who still do, believe that a person's sexual orientation or gender identity can be changed by religion, counseling, or peer quote-unquote support. Pray Away, as the name suggests, focuses primarily on the religious side of that conversion theory and speaks to many of the people who distance themselves from those beliefs, and most of whom feel a deep level of regret and guilt toward what they did to contribute to the harm done to thousands of people because of these types of programs. Has anyone heard of, or maybe not heard of, I think it's a pretty common thing, but been exposed to any of that?
This took place in 2006, or a lot of it was, and that's when I was in the Catholic school system at that point in time. So
Yeah.
it was very, very prevalent. to be.
I knew people that were either hiding or were threatened to go to these camps over the summer. That's not part of the Exodus program, but they were threatened by their parents to go to some kind of conversion camp. And that was a fear in their life. And at 14 or 15 years old, we knew that was wrong.
James, any exposure to this in your upbringing at all?
Nope. None at all. I think this was almost strictly Catholic.
Can I ask a question from like the point of view of being around in like the 70s, 80s? Like, do you feel with the like AIDS epidemic, because that's where this all starts, is like the AIDS epidemic and with the media doing the media
I think
does.
Exodus started in 1976.
Okay, yes. So, but just overall, like the whole message on like gay, like did you feel being alive at that time, was it like actually like a scary disease that people could catch, or like what was like the AIDS like that era like,
living through it? Yeah.
Well, I always thought that, when it first came out, we thought it was just a gay thing. Only people that was gay got AIDS, and then we realized that gays crossed the line and went heterosexual too, and then that transferred from there to just the regular people. Well, gay people are regular people too, just to let you guys know that. I want nobody going off on me today, but because I remember they had all this big, like, everybody singing the Kumbaya song is what I call it. Big flags, lots of names, a lot of people dying and everything. I'm like,
Oh, the flag that they put in D.C. for the AIDS. Mm-hmm.
And the way I look at it, I'm like, oh, well. And then I went back to play basketball because gay stuff really didn't affect me, didn't bother me. It wasn't.
There wasn't anyone you knew that was suffering?
Nope. I didn't know anybody suffering. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know any gay people.
Yeah, I would say we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that there's a little bit of, like within the Black community, from what I know, there's a little bit of
a higher fear of being ousted as gay.
Right.
That's true. That's very true. It wasn't until I actually went down to the park downtown, and there was so many Black gay people down there. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, man, where all these Black gay people come from? Wow.
Do you think maybe now they feel more comfortable coming out in 2022, 23 than they did in the 80s and 90s? Do you think they feel safer?
Because that's a double stereotype that's scary,
They're not only gay, but they're also Black. So they're already unsafe being Black, and now they're gay.
Right. Double on double one, yeah.
Good question, Kate.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Always.
You guys
Look at
too.
you coming out the door or out the gate.
I do have one more question.
Ask it.
What did you guys think about the name Exodus?
Oh, it's so on the nose.
I
thought it was so... Are you guys familiar with the Bob Marley song Exodus?
Mm-mm.
Exodus.
Yeah. It's a very different vibe than what this is.
That was not supposed to be offensive, me singing it that way.
No.
Hopefully it would.
I think you were just trying to sing along.
Exodus. Yeah, no, you're good.
All right.
I think.
Someone will feel differently.
I thought it was a little ironic and kind of in poor taste, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because what I have problems with is not so much people practicing Christianity or whatever, but it's when they take it and use it to like judge other people or to like do like dirty messaging and things like that.
And it's not Jesus's mission at all.
Jesus was a socialist.
Yeah. And so my other question is, in this documentary, I don't think Exodus actually was a Catholic organization. I think it was a specifically just Christian organization that came out of it, because Catholic and Christian are sometimes very separated, but Exodus came together with like 35,000 people.
No, they're definitely separated. It's just an umbrella term.
Right.
Sure. The documentary starts off with no speaking and an undertone of ominous music while the camera follows Jeffrey McCall, an ex-trans woman who has detransitioned as a man. Quote, "The Holy Spirit can give you new desires and wants," Jeffrey McCall tells passersby holding a sign labeled "Trans to Christ," with before and after pictures of himself presenting as a woman and then as a man. McCall delivers his pitch, quote, "Jesus can transform you," as he asks each group of people he comes across if he can pray with them, and most of who allow him to. McCall serves as the counterpoint to the half dozen survivors of the, quote, ex-gay movement the film follows. LGBTQIA plus people who were involved in its organizations, primarily Exodus International, but also Southern Poverty Law Center designated anti-gay hate group Family Research Council, or the FRC.
Southern Poverty Law Center is out there doing the work, people, identifying hate groups and standing up for those that need it. Just saying.
Preaching practices like conversion therapy and making pitches like McCall's before renouncing their participation and returning to or embracing for the first time their identities. Our first introductions to what I consider or what seem to be kind of introduced as our main characters is silent and ominous, in my opinion. So they spend quite a bit of time just sort of holding the camera on a person while they're sitting there kind of getting comfortable, and high-def close-ups of them not speaking. It's written all over their faces that they're feeling something heavy because they know what they're about to talk about, and they don't feel great about it, which I thought was a really fun way, especially for someone that's new to filmmaking like this director was, to sort of take a minute to breathe. I know when you watch or when you go to some of these, film schools and things like that, I haven't done a lot of that, but they talk about don't go too long without any human voice being heard. But
that pause on them.
Yeah, see what I did there? But it can, if it's done right, it can really portray a message. And I thought that was a fun part of the documentary where they just kind of sat down and were sort of fidgeting in their seats going,
can you imagine going into that? Like, I can't imagine what it felt like to crack that back open and admit to it even.
Yeah.
Like,
it had to be the guilt, because most of them were talking about the suicides they know happened after they had been in Exodus. All the suicides of people who had done conversion therapy and then realized that they hated themselves so much that their only escape was suicide. The thousands of people, and that's what led them there. But the first guy that we met, or the second guy with the long hair and the earring, he was happy and in a relationship. And that was really rewarding to see, is that he found happiness. Not everybody did, but he definitely found it.
And that one woman.
Yeah, Julie.
Yes, loved her.
In a marriage with a man.
No.
She's
in a lesbian.
She found her partner.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of the other lady.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but that lady's bisexual with a man.
Yeah.
Yes, which was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, she discovered that she was bisexual.
She
converted. I make a note that some of these people that started this Exodus, they actually went to the church thinking that they were wrong about something themselves. And it took a moment for them to realize that, well, hold on, wait, what I'm doing is maybe I'm not, and then they just switch back to being gay. I will say. But I just see that one person here forced to do it, except for when Julie was trying to explain the rape that happened to her. She didn't want to say it. And when she talked to the pastor or wherever he was to her, he insisted on it, even though it was a good speech. Yeah, this pressed her.
Exodus was created by people who were gay that wanted to convert, that wanted to use the church to help them.
So much guilt there.
Yeah, the whole thing just seems like a projection. Like, truly.
For sure. So Sam Thielman, who I took some of my notes from, he came up with kind of a good point that I didn't think about when I first watched it. And the documentary in and of itself kind of has a complicated task. I don't know if it was the point of it, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit, but the point of the documentary kind of seemed like it was to sympathize with its subjects as survivors without excusing the propagation of the same ideology that hurt other closeted Christians, many of whom did not survive at all. So it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, we're watching this documentary and we're gaining sympathy for people who were the cause of a lot of people's pain. So to put it in like a grander scale, or not, and not in any way, probably maybe a controversial thing to say, but it's almost like watching a documentary where you're sort of being asked to sympathize with like an ex-Nazi or something like that,
or a murderer,
or a murderer who murdered in the past, where you're kind of going, this was a person who
thought they were doing the right thing.
Thought they were doing the right thing, but were
being brainwashed
Yeah.
essentially into doing this. They thought that their faith was the key to their eternal life, to their to
well,
be a
many
part
of
of their
whom still believe
right,
that.
and to their family and their friends, to their whole world was to do this. The only way to save themselves from eternal hell, and that is powerful and can lead them to do whatever they needed to. And I thought was so interesting is that one of them, or more than one of them, said that the Holy Spirit could help them change their actions, but it wouldn't change their feelings. So they knew they were still attracted to men, but he could change his actions. He could have sex with his wife and have children, but he was still attracted to men. So
Is
he
that
knew.
the same gentleman who was in the corner looking at gay porn magazines?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. That was
And then went to a
was
gay
a
bar.
moment. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a moment. I was like,
Got
wow.
drunk and went to a gay bar. Yeah.
It is kind
Yeah.
of like abuse sympathizing, though. Honestly,
That's kind of what I was
Absolutely.
like realizing as well. That
They were
it's
also
sort of-
being abused.
yeah, that's what's it's a
They're abusers and abused.
paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure. The one of the things when I mentioned many of whom did not survive at all, one of the things overall, I think this was an excellent documentary, very informational, very well done,
Heavy.
but the thing that I think kind of was missed a little bit was they didn't really talk much about how many deaths were attributed to this. I looked up some of the statistics. Williams Institute School of Law at UCLA says lesbian, gay, and bisexual, non-transgender people, so this is not including transgender, who experienced some form of conversion therapy were almost twice as likely to have thought about, attempted, or committed suicide than their peers who had not. So that's other LGBTQ people who did not attempt that. So it's not just as a full.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see like a map of where these people are from too? Like if they're
be.
coming from rural or
Right. Rural is such a hard word to say.
I appreciate them.
Another statistic I found of all known LGBTQIA plus youth in America who have attempted suicide in the year 2020, 28% had undergone some sort of conversion therapy.
That's so much.
27% had been threatened with conversion therapy, and only
This
11
was in the past.
How
And
is that
only
still?
11%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Then it's illegal in 20 states. Is that right?
I'm just gonna Google it now.
I think that I don't know.
I don't think it's
But-
illegal in Nebraska.
Probably not now.
But you can still threaten, whether
Sure,
it's
you
legal
can
or
send them
not.
to another
That's
state.
true.
Yeah.
That is
But
true.
it's legal in Utah.
It is illuminating, especially in its exploration of McCall, someone so committed to ex-gay proselytizing. That's a tough word for me to say, proselytizing.
I'm not gonna try.
Just as the other, quote, former LGBTQ Christians in the film once were, he leads and worships in a community of people seeking to leave behind the parts of their identities that they believe are no more than wicked temptations, and his sincerity is total. McCall troubles a conventional narrative about so-called ex-gay Christian ministries. He is obviously not a grifter, profiting financially from the suffering of people who aren't like him. In fact, he himself is the kind of person he is trying to reach. So what does he get from it? The answer, the movie suggests, is belonging. In ex-gay ministries, LGBTQ evangelicals can have a warped fellowship inside communities that contain their every social support structure and might otherwise abandon them. Churches are as essential to the psychological survival of people raised and taught in them as air and water are to their physical bodies. But these communities are always making it clear that they cannot abide LGBTQ people and will reject them forever if they try to find community elsewhere. So ex-gay ministries persist. Those of us raised in churches, do you agree with the line that I just read? Churches are essential to the psychological survival of people raised and taught in them as air and water are to their physical bodies, but these communities are always making it clear that they cannot abide LGBTQ people and will reject them forever if they try to find community elsewhere. Do you have a take on that, Catherine?
Or James.
Will you read it one more time?
Let's
Sorry.
see.
I'm hearing it, but I want to make sure I make the right argument.
Yeah. I wonder if I can paraphrase it a
I'm
little
just
bit.
going to say
Basically,
no, Jeff. I'm just going to say no. Okay, go ahead.
basically they're saying, if I'm reading this right, that churches are essential to community. If you're raised in it, that is your community.
Right.
And if you identified as or had those communities make it clear that they cannot abide LGBTQ lifestyle.
I think
and you will be rejected if
it definitely is going to depend on the church, obviously. Like I know
That's true.
in our town here in downtown Omaha, there's a really great place that has Catholic artwork, but also they have like pro-abortion, not pro-choice, sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
Or pro-abortion.
We're here for it.
Yep. And like pro-LBG.
As the only women in the room.
LGBTQIA plus.
Why do people
hold on, let her finish
Okay, go
her
ahead,
thought
finish.
process.
So
Process.
for me, like I still have a strong sense of community with the church, honestly. Hence the Sacred Heart tattoo I just got in the middle of my chest.
Likewise.
Yeah. So it's not. I do feel that community and belonging to something is obviously important, but I do feel that in a lot of different ways, if you don't abide and you're not this certain type of Christian, you're not welcomed here. And it doesn't matter, like, even if it could be outside of like gayness too. Like it can be anything. It's just like, if you are not this archetype, you are not here.
And that's, I think, what the point here was. That's why the ex-gay ministries persist, because even as whether it's gay in any shape or form or any type of something that this church would consider sin or sinful lifestyle, you will always be, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because
A black sheep.
yeah, you're always going to kind of be looked at as
I resent that word.
as
the
the-
black sheep.
Wow.
as the one
Because
to
you have a beard.
Yeah, because I got a beard.
as the one to be saved. I was just saying that, like, in the church, if you are openly pursuing or living a lifestyle that is considered sinful, then you can very easily be viewed, even if you're accepted in the building or in the community, you're always going to have a feeling of, or rightfully have the title of, being the one who needs to be saved.
Yeah, I was never comfortable at school ever.
Right.
Ever.
And
Because
by school, because you went to school at
Catholic
church.
school,
Okay.
yeah, because it was well known. Like, my parents weren't like, even that is like a thing, I guess.
Right. The ex-gay movement believed that homosexuality was a psychological illness that needed treatment. They wrote of homosexual tendencies as childhood trauma and blamed a person's upbringing for their sexuality. It was noted in the doc that the leaders of Exodus had no training or education and were severely underqualified to do what they were doing. The film transitions back and forth between our main characters. Julie Rogers, formerly of anti-gay support group Exodus International, explains in the film how ex-gay work allows for some relief from the fear of shunning. Quote, you're doing Bible studies and small groups and learning things, but you're also staying up until 2 a.m, laughing and talking and telling jokes. Rogers recalls of one conference. I remember especially the late night times when all the leaders were in bed and we just got to be our little queer selves. It was in many ways one of the safe places in our lives. And I know that sounds really crazy because it was an Exodus International conference, but that was what belonging looked like for us. And that is kind of what I think we were just getting at earlier, is the fact that there was an ex-gay ministry means that is gay in the church and we can be together, even if it's being together try to be ex-gay.
Yeah.
There's
We have a
scripture-
community
We can
of
do it
people like
together.
us. It's like people of like minds with like temptations
Right.
and things. If you feel like you're the only one, and they talked about it several times in the doc, if you're the only one that's feeling these things, if I'm the only man who thinks I'm the only one dealing with homosexual thoughts and temptations, and to me that feels wrong and isolating, and then you realize there's an ex-gay ministry and now there's one that I can belong to. Whether or not we feel that these things are wrong, it's the same reason why you have women's groups or men's groups who talk. I can't speak to what women's groups talk about, but men's groups who talk about, in the church, you talk about your struggles with lust or with, whatever
Gambling.
else. Yeah, gambling, whatever else you're dealing with, because you're relating to people that have those same temptations. And in that world, which brings back to what I consider to be a little bit of some flashbacks, I think, into my childhood, but being in a community of like-minded, quote unquote, sinners can be a relief. So in a much different way, I related to what she was saying and kind of could understand why she was saying that.
Yeah, that sounds good, being said like that. Yeah, that does sound pretty cool. Pretty right. I just think that there's a scripture in the Bible where it says that the master went out and planted the field. And as he planted the field, somebody else came along and planted weeds amongst the wheat. And then they said, hey, after it grew up, they went back and told the master what had happened. He said, well, can we go down there and tear out the wheat? He said, nope, don't tear out the wheat, because if you tear the wheat out, you'll tear up some of the tear out the tear, you tear out some of the wheat with it, meaning that if the people, gay or whatever, wants to come into church, you should never stop a gay person from coming to church, because, like you said, Jesus loves everybody. And Jesus is the one that does the conversion. People should not do the conversion because they only disrupt what the Lord is trying to do to himself. So why would you do that? Let gay people come in church.
I just don't think Jesus wants
Let
to convert,
gay
though.
people be who they want to be. And if they decide to make the change, then that's good. But if they don't treat them any different.
Can you imagine?
Let God be the one to do that judging, not you, who put you in that spot where you can judge someone else. And I'm saying that because I used to judge a lot of gay people myself. It took a long time in the realization with my son that, hey, you cannot talk to a certain race if you got something against them already. What kind of sense is that? If I hate you, how am I going to talk to you?
Yeah.
We can never agree. That's crazy. But anyway.
It takes a lot for someone to come around on a prejudice that they've held for so long, or even to learn something new like that. It's huge personal achievement. You should be very proud of yourself.
So what we were saying about these people who had started Exodus, and we were debating whether they would be interpreted as abusers or whatever. So where's that line in society, I guess, where people
become responsible for...
Right, but so I guess my question is at what point can we forgive people for...
I think there's a big difference between someone that may have a belief as to those things versus a belief is not necessarily shaming someone or forcing somebody or telling somebody that they're wrong for something. It's just it's a belief.
Right.
Whether I believe, and this is not my beliefs necessarily at all, but whether I believe a certain lifestyle is a sin or not, if I'm still accepting you and still loving you and still treating you as an equal and still whatever my rights are, I would advocate that those should be your rights because they're not mine to say whose they are.
Exactly.
However, if I'm starting a program that says, yeah, but you don't have to be and you shouldn't be and I'm gonna do everything I can to tell you, then that's where I feel like it changes, in my opinion, where it changes from that. And this might be a good time to point out that part of the reason we chose the group of people that are involved in this show is because we know we come from a lot of different generations and backgrounds and beliefs and all of that, but we all are very much respect each other and love each other. And I want to say to everyone here that I very much appreciate the open-mindedness and the
mutual respect.
Yeah. So thank you guys for that. I am going to bring us back to the documentary. Michael Bussey, I think that's how it was pronounced, one of the founders of Exodus International and one of the first to leave the group over the harm he saw it doing, also points out to this need for community among gay Christians in the documentary that will always exist, he says, whether they're churches or are conservative or liberal, as long as homophobia in the church exists, he says, some version of Exodus will emerge. the filmmaking may feel, and this comes from the article I was reading, may feel a little generic, but she is so deeply literate on conversion or reparative therapy ministries for LGBTQ Christians that, and when I say LGBTQ, I'm trying to be all inclusive, QIA plus, all of the good stuff. Included. That using mostly talking heads and a climax that recycles news footage, she still manages to put together a devastating narrative arc from repression to proselytizing, from proselytizing to hypocrisy, from hypocrisy to freedom, from freedom to devastating guilt. Meaning, when they were young, when they were impressionable, they were repressing what they were feeling as temptations, as sins, whatever they wanted to call them, to, if I'm understanding the word proselytizing, to telling people why that is a sin and trying to convert them to a different belief.
What happened to love thy neighbor as thyself, you know?
To hypocrisy, which is where we talk about the guy who is preaching, you can be ex-gay, I don't have gay temptations, and then he's got Playgirl over in the corner, or he's going to the gay bars. So that's hypocrisy. And then from hypocrisy to freedom, acceptance, you know what? This is who I am. And then from freedom to guilt and saying, oh shit, I may have hurt a lot of people based on my proselytizing.
Like a cyclone.
It is. When I think about that, I think about that cycle. I actually wrote cycle, just like you said cyclone, but same thing.
Yeah.
I think about that with a lot of empathy. Catherine.
Yes.
And we can cut anything out that you're not comfortable talking about, but with your experience growing up in the church, and you have openly said that you are half gay.
Half gay.
Was that something that you have known for a long time? Have you accepted that and been out?
Yeah, I remember thinking, I was like 5.
What was your experience in the church knowing that about yourself?
I didn't admit to that until I was like 19, probably.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, because it's like in my brain, it felt like, is this real, or is this just like something that I'm making up in my head? Like that was a genuine question in my head. Like,
so you say you were 5. What?
I just remember being, I can tell you, the Caddyshack. Yeah, sex scenes from the Caddyshack. Not even kidding. Don't know why.
Huh.
What from Caddyshack?
There's 2 sex scenes. I haven't seen Caddyshack since that moment either.
This is the Bill Murray with the
from 1970.
gopher.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know why. I have
don't
no
even
idea
remember
why.
there being sex scenes in that movie.
There's 2.
So Michael Bussey, one of the things he said was, we believed if you kept repeating it, if you kept believing God could change you, he would. Over and over and over again, believing those things, praying for those things, praying away. That's the whole point of this doc.
Right.
That things would change for you. Was that something that you felt? Were people saying that? Was that something that you believed could happen?
I thought I could just ignore it for my whole life, for sure. I mean, I'm technically in a heterosexual relationship right now, but that was kind of my plan, though, was just to stay with men. I'm going to marry a man, like whatever. But yeah, I mean, even to this day, it's something that I probably wouldn't act on, just because, like, not fully act on, I should say, because of there is
some ingrained.
Yeah, I'm Irish Catholic. Yeah, they're not messing around over there.
Yeah. I know that even as a heterosexual male growing up in the church, there was guilt over everything. And even like what they would often refer to as impure thoughts and things like that. The amount, I mean, a pubescent boy going through that time of his life and being told that every thought like that he has is so shameful.
That's traumatic.
And so and needs to be repressed. And the amount of guilt and shame that you feel, and the more you repeat it, the more you pray it, the more maybe that'll go away, maybe that'll get easier.
It's
maybe
enough to give you
that's
what's the thing in your stomach?
We
An
grew up
ulcer.
with nothing like that.
Talk to me about what you mean by that.
Church, everybody knew it. You know,
What?
this is
Knew
what
what?
this is what you're gonna do. Guys like guys. I mean, guys like women like
Was that a
guys.
Freudian slip?
Freudian slip, man.
That was
We're
not
talking
as
about
good.
it so much, it's coming up.
I think these ladies got me going backwards. Yeah. I need more coffee and more,
You need
more
the
donuts. or
Literally,
something.
literally backwards.
But anyway, we
Continue, please.
we just
Everyone knew what?
everybody just thought that it was a natural thing for a man to be with a woman
Okay.
and a woman
That
to
was
be
a
with a
natural
man, and just never
expectation.
spoke of. No one tried
So
to.
there
no one
wa-
forced it on us or nothing. Because when
Nobody
I talked
said the word gay to you or homosexual.
no, we didn't.
But what-
didn't bother us.
But you were speaking to like what I felt with shame when it came to
Impure thoughts.
and things like that. Is that something that you
Did they
were-
talk to you about it?
Nope,
Really?
nope.
That is
nope.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
what kind of shame did they talk to you about?
Just the basic ones. The basic.
Which is what?
The basic Moses.
Don't
theories.
lie, don't cheat.
Don't kill. Don't lie. Don't cheat.
Oh, the Ten
None of that-
Commandments.
The Ten Commandments type thing. That's what we were bringing.
All right. So back to Pray Away. The story of John Polk, the VP of Exodus International, who became the spokesperson and the case in point or proof of concept for the ex-gay movement. That was a really interesting one for me because he was so certain and so aggressive and so sure, at least publicly, that he was no longer gay,
Right.
or so he said. We found out that the entire time he was suppressing the thoughts and temptations.
Right.
Come to find out, his ex-wife, who was a quote ex-lesbian, is still in the gay ministry because business long after John walked away from it with huge amounts of guilt and finally embraced his true sexuality and freedoms. John said, "I don't know why it didn't go away, and I don't know how to make it, and I didn't know how to make it go away, and it's getting worse. I ached to be loved and to love a man, and eventually the reasons I was doing life as a straight man didn't matter anymore. If I keep having to do this, I will take my life," is what he said.
Do you think
ju-
he
go
thinks
ahead.
about all the people who he
Absolutely
influenced to take their own lives? You know,
I think they cover that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
I-
he
I-
talked about it specifically.
Yeah, I don't
missed
think-
that the 4 times.
That was the time that you got up to do a walkabout.
Yep.
I think that the large amount of time is when they actually got together with the people and they start telling them what you did to us.
Yeah.
And that kind of like turned all the lights on
Yeah.
to everybody, you
Yep.
know, and they're like,
And we're going
okay.
to talk about that here in just a
Yeah.
second. One great insight of Pray Away is that they talk about some form of self-harm is essential to the nature of the ex-gay movement. Whether it's suppression of oneself or actual physical harm, it seems to go hand in hand. In the film, Julie Rogers, says she remembers members putting cigarettes out on herself and burning herself with coins heated up with a cigarette lighter to feel some kind of control as she became a more public part of Exodus's program. When we see her marry her partner at the end of the film, she's wearing a beautiful sleeveless dress that shows rows of puckered scars on her right arm, which was super moving to me.
And it wasn't like a close up, it was just
Yeah.
in the background. It
But
was an
it-
afterthought.
Yeah, and I liked that they didn't focus on
Right.
that, but I also liked that she was willing to embrace
Share that
that,
part of
share
herself.
that, expose that.
I do. I was gonna that. I've done that. The cigarette burns on your legs and that like there. I'm not promoting it. It's not a good idea. It's a horrible idea actually. But I mean, it does release like the pain and everything of it. Like I understand.
That's such a scary thing because of how much further that can go.
Yeah. Right.
And again, this is not
Self-harm can escalate.
Very
Call the
quickly.
suicide hotline, which is now 988.
Eventually, in one way or another, almost every leader of the Exodus program began to come away from it with a huge amount of guilt. In one part of the show, some of the survivors had the opportunity to confront the leaders of Exodus, including Julie Rogers, in front of TV cameras and spell out the kind of pain and suffering they have had to endure because of programs such as theirs, which is what James was just speaking about.
Right.
This directly led to the closing of Exodus. That guilt is on screen. It's easy to hate the subjects of this documentary. All of them worked in LGBTQIA ministries at one time or another. Some of them seem to have justified their behavior as simple outgrowth of the way they were mistreated. But for others, the ones who are the most sympathetic characters in the film, you'd be hard-pressed to hate them any more than they hate themselves, from what
Probably not even close.
Right. The end of this doc points out that conversion therapy programs still exist and are flourishing today. I'm not even going to mention any of the names of these programs, but it isn't going away.
We looked up at the beginning because Catherine mentioned how many states still had it legal, and I did not know, but she did look at it.
Yeah, it is 20. I believe it's 20 that's banned, but Nebraska is partially banned, whatever that means. There's a lot of states that are partially, and it's like,
Oh, that's
okay, so what's
interesting.
the line? How is that decided?
Yeah. The Freedom March,
Oh my God.
led by Jeffrey McCall. And
I was so excited when I saw all those gays walk into that house. I was like, oh my God, are they having
know
like
what
a
it-
kumbaya?
That was so sad.
And then none of them were, they're all gay.
And
but
then
none
the
of them were
pounding on the
gay.
floor.
Like,
That
yeah,
was
Well,
like
that
tribal.
that felt very
cult.
Yeah, I mean, but in my opinion, this documentary was an I'm sorry documentary in a lot of ways.
That's a great way to describe it.
I feel like it was an apology note in some ways.
Right.
As far as representation goes, I think, the one Jeffrey McCall, his, kind of where he was at in his life and his ministry with the freedom marches and things like that. That was the one side. And then we had a lot more on the kind of, I don't know if reformed is the right word, but sort of went from ex-gay, the whole cycle that we talked
They
about
went
earlier.
back to the blueprint.
Right. Do we feel sympathy for these characters or people? I shouldn't call them
They were
characters. The main
definitely-
characters.
They're victims
Pressured.
for sure.
By the church and their friends and family into feeling shame for who they were. And then you could say forced into these programs. I mean, these wouldn't exist had they not felt pressure from the people around them
You think so?
to do this. Who would want to do this? Who would want to change who they are? These people would not form an anti-gay organization against themselves if someone had not said, you cannot be gay.
You think so? I'll say that again.
Why would they? Why would they think it's wrong to be gay
Because
unless someone
at the
looked at them
beginning-
and said being gay is wrong?
Because at the beginning of it, the guy said that he was thinking that it was wrong. He said himself he was thinking. So he decided
'cause it's
to
society.
go
Thought
to
it
the
was
church.
wrong because people told him.
Well, he didn't never say that. In the film, he just simply was sitting there. He said,
He said, I feel that it's wrong
Mm-hmm.
because the church says that being homosexual is bad.
did he say that in the beginning of the movie?
It doesn't matter if he said it because we know that's
then
implied.
but then we would only be speculating.
No, dude.
No? You guys don't agree with me?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely
Not
not.
on that one.
Well,
I respect
just-
your opinion, but
I
I,
do
think
too.
for all
I
these...
mean, I can understand what you're saying.
thousands
That
of
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm just glad. That's why my point from the way beginning, like the church should have no business saying anything.
You're right.
It should
No, they
all
should just be singing their
whatever the
little
Lord
songs.
said. Come on, if I'm singing Kumbaya,
This is where we
Come and sing
gather
too.
to
right?
Love.
to love and to
Exactly.
be in the presence of our God or our
Spiritual
entity
leader
or
of some
whatever
kind.
it is that
Sure.
we're
Flying
worshiping.
spaghetti monster.
Yeah, and
I mean, how many times have
it's
Jesus-
not for me to say
Right.
that what you are, who you are, what you choose or don't choose to be, or which part of which group you want to be in, or that you are in, or that however you want to be it.
Right.
That's not for us.
That's exactly right. It's
And
not
that,
for us.
of course, that's an opinion.
And then even Jesus, when they bring the woman that committed a sin in front of him, he didn't even say a word about it, which is was what we should do. We shouldn't say a word about whoever comes before God. He said, "Let them without sin cast the first stone."
That's the
Let
one
them
verse that
without
I
sin to cast the first stone.
Okay, let's give our ratings for Pray Away, the official documentary ratings. Today, we discussed and we are going to use the item rainbows as our scoring item this week, 1 to 10, 1 being garbage, 10 being the best I've ever seen, and then we're going to average it. Catherine, how many rainbows did you give our Pray Away documentary?
I'm going to go 8 rainbows.
8 rainbows. Any comments you want to make on that, or just because you thought it was 2 away from being the best thing you've ever seen?
I'm going to be honest, I would put Jesus Camp above.
Yes.
Because they go into the end of the numbers with the evangelicalism, which you can see the effects of that today. I don't know why, but I feel like I was left asked. Like I want to know. I have a lot of questions.
A lot of unanswered things.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. James, how many rainbows, buddy?
8.
8 rainbows.
Yep, I give 8 rainbows because I started off, I was going to only give it 2. But then it just got real informative. It made you think a little bit about people and actions and everything else. So it had good thought in it as far as I'm concerned. It opened my eyes to a little thing, a lot of things, so I give it an 8 rainbows.
Cool. Thanks, James. Katy VP, rainbows.
Also going to go with 8.
8.
Catherine took the words right out of my mouth. Jesus
Give
Camp
them
is
back. I'm just kidding.
Jesus Camp is a great predecessor, but this one left me with a lot of questions. I enjoyed the fact that it was very unbiased, but I really wanted to see more from the first character that we met, the ex-trans person. And then at the end, if they're all so very sorry, please tell us more about what happened to the people who didn't survive or those that are still struggling. So.
Right. And for that reason, exactly, I as usual, as we've shown in the previous episodes, I'm always a little bit lower because I have a hard time giving high scores. But 7, I'm giving 7 rainbows. I'm tough.
TUFF tough.
JEFFTUFF. Mostly because of if this is, like you said, and I'm sorry, a apology of sorts, then let's talk about the things that really can't be taken back, and that's lives. So I gave it a 7 because it was a well-made doc, especially for somebody's first documentary they've ever made. That's pretty impressive.
That's insane, yeah.
Yeah. So that makes our official documentary score 7.75
Fairly well.
rainbows for Pray Away.
Right on.
Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary people, friends of all ages, size, shapes, and colors.
Sexualities.
And sexualities. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me today. Catherine, it was wonderful having you here. I'm glad you finally joined us.
Thanks, guys.
And talking about this documentary, it's been a lot of fun. And I enjoy being able to open up with you guys and with all of our listeners who are just pouring in every week. Next week's episode, our crew member, James, he picked a documentary called Fed Up. So we're going to watch that one. It is, let's see.
It's about sugar in the food industry and how these food industry giants have purchased their way onto the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, U.S. Department of Food and Agriculture, and have even purchased their way into our children's school lunches.
A genius.
Yeah, thank you, Katy.
Well done, James.
Information
Well done.
That
You gathered that research.
Thank you,
did.
James, for that rundown.
Yes.
that's my girl there.
Yeah,
my girl.
I got
Shout
you, King
out.
James.
Shout
I'm
out.
here for you.
We're
not worthy.
Who's seen Fed Up?
You know, I might have.
I've seen a lot of them.
This is
and
an
I
audio
think I've
medium,
seen it.
and we had 2 people
Katy
raise their hands.
Couric. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Katy Couric narrates this documentary. I've watched it many times. It has 2 little M&Ms on it. I think they're blue and yellow, and they say Fed Up.
We're going to watch that on Tubi.
There we go.
Tubi
Tubi,
is
yeah.
Tubi.
Is that free?
It is free. I think
Nice.
you got to watch ads, but hey, we can deal with
Whatever.
I can do it.
that. Next week, Katy, James will return, and we will be joined by our good friend Matt, who's been over there in the booth. We will return to continue shoving massive amounts of processed food and sugars into our brains,
Like we did tonight with
One
pizza and candy.
documentary
And coffee.
at a time. On behalf of DJ, Katy, Catherine, James, Matt, and the entire documentary
And
family.
Bryce, who's asleep on the couch.
And Bryce, who's asleep on the couch. I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski, and I want to thank you all for listening, for hanging out, for watching, for talking. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other.
Kisses.
Bye.